The book opens with Trevor's voice as if he's sitting beside you, sharing from experience. He doesn't just lecture about bullies, he paints vivid scenes of what it feels like when someone makes fun of your hair, your clothes, your laugh, or the way you walk down the hall. From the first pages, he makes it clear, you are not alone, and the sting you feel is real and worthy of attention. Early on, Trevor introduces the idea that bullies often act out not because of anything you did, but because of their own inner frustrations and insecurities. He tells stories of kids who tease others to cover up their own fears or to feel powerful in moments when they otherwise feel powerless. By giving context to the bully's behavior, he doesn't excuse it, he empowers you to separate the hurtful act from your sense of self. Trevor then shifts into why bullies pick on certain kids. He invites the reader to observe patterns. Kids who are kind, creative, or different often become targets because they don't fit a narrow mold. Through gentle narrative, he suggests that uniqueness is not the problem, it's often what makes someone remarkable. He shares examples of children who learn to see their differences as strengths. One of the richest sections of the book unfolds through imagined conversations Trevor has with real students. He depicts a child practicing how to respond when someone calls them a name. At first, the child tries silence and just stands there, looking small inside. Trevor encourages a different approach: take a breath, stand tall, and say something simple like, "That's your opinion." In these moments, the narrative feels alive, like you're rehearsing real responses in your head. Another story brings in the idea of bully mind traps, situations where you start replaying hurtful words over and over again. Trevor tells the tale of a girl who walked home thinking about a mean comment for hours. He then introduces a mental tool: picture a stop sign in your mind and replace the angry replay with a calm scene, like floating on a cloud or playing with a pet. The story gives you an emotional exercise tied to a vivid image. Trevor's storytelling also explores different kinds of bullying. He doesn't shy away from cyberbullying, describing how hurt can travel through screens and into the quietest moments of a kid's night. One memorable vignette shows a child reading a hurtful message right before bed, then tossing and turning. Trevor uses this to introduce the idea of logging off and seeking support from someone you trust, a neighbor, a sibling, or a parent, as soon as the first painful thought hits. There's a scene that deals with bystanders, the kids who watch, unsure whether to jump in, run away, or laugh. Trevor talks about the power of even a small supportive gesture, a literal step toward the bullied kid, a quiet word of encouragement, or simply saying, "Hey, that's not cool." Through narrative, he illuminates that bystanders can shift the whole atmosphere without putting themselves in harm's way. Midway through, the story focuses on emotional resilience. Trevor tells a story about a boy who kept a journal where he wrote one thing he liked about himself every night. Over time, those small notes began to change how the boy saw himself. Trevor weaves in reflective questions children can ask themselves, turning personal challenges into opportunities for growth. Trevor also gives attention to adults, but always through the voice of a child looking up, wondering how adults can help. He portrays scenes where teachers step in calmly, not angrily, to redirect bullying behavior, and where parents listen without judgment. These snapshots show that support isn't about punishment alone, it's about understanding and guiding. The narrative then brings in humor as a survival tool. Trevor includes light-hearted, absurd examples of things kids might imagine to distract themselves from hurt, like picturing a bully in a superhero costume with mismatched socks and a funny voice. These moments of levity aren't shallow, they show how imaginative thinking can break the cycle of painful thoughts. Trevor introduces an empathetic twist when he encourages kids to consider what might be happening in the bully's life outside of school. He tells a story of a boy whose bully turned out to be struggling with challenges at home. The realization didn't excuse the behavior, but it opened a new path for compassion, and for reducing anger in the bullied child's own heart. At the heart of the book is the idea of communication, and Trevor illustrates this through dialogue rather than instruction. One scene shows a kid practicing assertive, respectful language in front of a mirror before going to school. It feels like you're watching a personal rehearsal, inviting you to try the phrases yourself. Near the end, Trevor shifts to stories of transformation, kids who were once hurt and confused yet found courage to stand up for others. These aren't fairy tales, they're realistic arcs that give hope without sugarcoating the difficulty of change. Each story reinforces that growth is messy, but possible. Toward the close, Trevor synthesizes the lessons through reflective storytelling, a child looking back over 6 months of school, seeing how responses that once felt terrifying became manageable. The narrative makes the abstract concrete, because you can almost feel the easing of tension in the child's shoulders. Finally, the book ends with an invitation rather than a conclusion. Trevor speaks directly to the reader, suggesting they write their own story of a moment they stood up to a bully, to a fear, or to a negative thought. It's a call to action born from story, not instruction, and it leaves you with the sense that resilience is something you build with each choice, each day.